Byron, welcome. Thank you to join us. Thank you for joining us and share your experience here in Brazil. New in this experience of data protection and privacy. It's for the last 3 or 4 years we have a law dealing with that. It's based on European law. I know that in the United States, privacy is be dealing with for a while now. We're anxious to see your point of view and to learn about what you have done in this.
Actually, we're gonna talk with Byron now and get this answer, this scenario. Sorry about the delay to answer, but we really want some to hear from you about the scenario and about the deed for certification, not just certification, the content, the certification process. That certification is just the goal, but it's not the important thing is what you learn in the process.
Right. Well
So we have a lot of challenges here in Brazil. I don't know how are these challenges in US or how much people in US are going to this training, and not just US, the entire world. I know that today a lot of people are in Brussels in your Congress.
Yes.
So,
yes.
It's nice to talk about it, to talk about how important is not just the certification, but the association, the content, all the content that you share for IAPP, because the goal is to know about the formation, not just about the certification. Myself as a professional, how can IAPP help in that?
Yeah, great point. I can definitely speak to that. I can also talk a little bit about what we're seeing in the rest of the world too, which will be helpful. But I think you put it exactly right. It's so much more than the certification. It's the education that you get for that helps keep your business successful. Wonderful to be here. My name is Byron Johnson. I'm with the IAPP. I've been with the IAPP for about 5 years now, and I take care of our partner network in the US, Canada, and the Caribbean, along with India and, of course, one of my favorites, Brazil. So it's been wonderful working with Fernando and team. We have seen an explosion of interest in privacy. It's become such a hot topic because of recent and challenging regulation. And the IAPP, being the International Association of Privacy Professionals, has really tried to do a good job of providing the professionals that do this work with the certification, the validation of their knowledge, but also the training that really is paramount to the needs of the business. Now, a lot of times we see that the greatest source of privacy risk for an organization is its employees. So every time they touch data or make a decision about data, they create a privacy exposure for you. So turning on a culture of privacy to address risks and improve privacy for your company will actually help the risk management that you'll be doing for your company. I use the lead and believe in privacy term to kind of make it everyone's business and bring it to each employee and explain why it matters. and what makes it a business issue. And in doing so, the training that the IAPP has created really ends up being the gold standard for preparing your employees to raise their hand or at least know what to do when a privacy incident happens. If you don't, you do risk having a strong legal and engineering department that understands the issue. That's great, but there are going to be gaps throughout the organization where awareness will not exist, and you really want to prepare those employees with training so that they know what to do in the event they come up on PII if they don't usually work with data, or handle data day to day and know what to do, either deal with that data issue or at least know to raise their hand and pass it along. So the IAPP has created trainings that align with our globally recognized certifications, specifically for Brazil, to make sure that the knowledge that we're representing to the market is exactly what they need to be able to do their jobs. One of the ways that we do that is through a job task analysis. And essentially, we're looking at the people, the volunteers, the contributors of the IAPP that actually have these jobs in market. And then we use that information, what they're being challenged with, what kind of skills they need to have to do that job. And we create a training and a certification to both teach those skills, but then also validate that information for the employee, for their professional development, but also for the organization. And that means so much for the organization because it helps establish that culture of privacy. When you have the C-suite, and this is a recommendation that I have, when you have the C-suite talking about privacy as a real, important part of the business, you end up having an understanding organization-wide that this role-based understanding of privacy is going to make sure that you know how to resolve or elevate and have the tools to do that. So going back to Brazil here, we launched our CDPO Brazil product specific for the Brazilian market in 2021. And we had about 700 or so candidates take that course and that certification. We're seeing those numbers rise. The interest around that certification is rising. The IAPP is doing some work right now to understand the market of Brazil better. Obviously, the US and Brazil and places all around the world are having some economic challenges. And we're trying to make sure we right size our solutions to these risk issues with the right pricing and everything. So we are growing our awareness and work within Brazil, and we're hoping to see even more Brazilians train and certify. We also know and understand that certification is not everyone's goal, and that's okay. Like I was talking about before, when you're thinking about a privacy culture, you need to make sure that everyone at least knows when to raise their hand. And the trainings that we're able to provide through, in-country partners like Antebellum ends up being a great way for you to transcribe or translate that to your business. I also like to use the concept or idea that the controls and things you have in place for money should be a good indicator of what you should be doing for privacy. We know that the value of data is getting more and more, and unfortunately, a lot of companies haven't yet protected that data like they would funds. And one of the ways that we do that through the IAPP is through our training, which gives you the tools, specifically our CIPM, which is part of that CDPO Brazil package. It teaches you how to manage a privacy program For example, we kick off that training with the details and the how-to of developing a privacy program, creating an organizational vision, using or establishing and then using a data governance model that fits well with your organization, and so on and so forth. And that will give you the tools necessary to take privacy from a business risk to a business asset. And I think I'd end this little spiel with exactly that. You're going to have a hard time keeping customers, vendors, business partners, if you're not thinking about privacy, because privacy translates trust, and trust becomes, a platform that you can build the rest of the business off of. And if you're planning to manage privacy, you have to think about the ways that program is either eroding or contributing to your organization's success. This is a human issue. It's not an antitrust issue, but rather an issue that takes into account somebody's emotions and feelings, and it makes them passionate about that. And it's also driven by culture. So understanding and having that buy-in from leadership is very important to making sure that the company understands why this is so important. We also have examples of, Fortune 100 companies actually having a C-level executive introduce every privacy training class. So I think I'd finish it off here by saying, think about the ways that you're handling money in your organization, and think about ways that you can translate those controls and concepts and theories of protecting those funds to what you're doing for data and privacy.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Let me ask you a question. I'm from Federação das Indústrias in Minas Gerais. One of the main challenges for companies here in Brazil now is to deal with the regulatory environment. Have to prove that we have an agency called Agência Nacional de Proteção de Dados. It's a new agency, they still building up the structure, so we don't have a lot of guidelines about maturity of our programs, the level of protection that we have. So we can work, all we can do now is work with, from the legal point of view, we can work with the notion that we have employ our best efforts to protect the data, to improve the information security, how certifications like the IAPP can help us with that.
Yeah, wonderful question. What's really nice about privacy training is that it's preparing you to almost translate what DPAs, data protection authorities, are thinking. That's a very hard challenge, and you put it very well. You don't always know what DPAs are thinking, and sometimes they're being challenged by new technology, emerging technology, and in the case of Brazil, new laws and regs that have to keep up with that technology. Training ends up being and kind of starting at a level of due diligence where DPAs are going to actually look more favorably on you if you've done your due diligence and you have a privacy program in place, and that privacy program includes training. I bring it back to the wash your hands before you return to work sign in some restrooms. And essentially, that for us as consumers is, hey, I really hope they do that. And what I would say for privacy too is, you train your employees, you send them back to their desks. At that point, you're really hoping that they're doing those things that you've trained them on. Now, what supports that is a culture of privacy, and that's going to be very important, making sure that training goes as far as it can. I mentioned role-based training before, and I think both of those, a culture of privacy and role-based training, is really important in making sure that you're prepared to deal with a breach if it happens, but also you're showing DPAs that you're doing your due diligence to make sure that privacy is a top priority in your organization. And I would also add to that, I think a lot of organizations still see data protection and privacy as a cost center and not necessarily the opportunity that it really is. If you're able to understand your data, map your data, and understand how you can extract value from that data by using things like training, specifically CIPM, it's mapped to the NIST privacy framework and others like ISO 27001. That's going to align that privacy program with some of the other risk management tools that you're using in the org. And essentially, when you have that culture of privacy, role-based training, and a DPA that comes to see if you're doing things right, you'll be able to show that much better if you have training as a part of that story. I'd also mention, if you don't think through how you're going to manage that data, create consents for it, protect it, secure it, you could end up a couple years down the line without a business, because there is that consumer loyalty aspect here. There is that regulation and fines possibility there. But if you're doing privacy right and you're taking the time to look at your data and extract value from that, you're now enabling the opportunity of extra value coming from that data, because you've split up that PII, you've protected it in a way that aligns with both compliance and the legal side of things, but also you're now able to enjoy some of the benefits that come from using that data wisely, being a good data steward. And I would say, to complete this question, think of the other things that matter to an organization, like money, like funds. There's always a compliance side of that, but if everyone in the company, didn't know that a check coming through the door was important, it'd be a really big issue. And I think we have to establish that same type of understanding and control around data that we do for money.
But Byron, as I said, Federação das Indústrias represents about 40,000 companies here in Minas Gerais. There is a few very large companies. Most of them are not so big. There's in fact what we call microindústrias, pequenas e microindústrias, small business, family business.
Right.
They have, of course, a bigger challenge to adapt to the law and to adapt to the reality of the society. To protect the privacy of the citizens, a challenge not for the companies, a challenge for the whole society. So the presence of institutions like your institution, it's important to produce knowledge, to reproduce knowledge, to elevate the level of the companies as a general, to promote the culture. Do you have any plans to install some chapter of this of your institution here in Minas Gerais or in other parts of Brazil?
Yeah, great question. Our focus on Brazil is only growing. We had a very successful first take on the LGPD focused product CDPO Brazil, and essentially that successful kickoff has really shown us how quickly Brazil is taking steps to handle and deal with LGPD correctly. So yes, I would say in the future you will see more engagement with the IEPP directly in Brazil, and we will only be expanding there region to region. Obviously, being a not-for-profit and also, an international resource for the rest of the world, with India and the U.S. looking at countrywide comprehensive privacy laws, this space is only getting busier and busier. The great thing is that we've already established a very successful program and group of members in Brazil. And it'll be really exciting to see as we can offer more to that group, what we'll see and learn from our Brazilian friends.
Thank you.
Of course.
Byron, thank you very much.